to 15 if we
Okay.
can.
48-hour art check, round 13. All right.
All right. Yes.
So here we are, a day later than normal. We both have...
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
should we kind of get into that?
Sure.
Okay, so I was sick. That's pretty much getting into it.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that what we'll probably do in the future, if like one of us is sick or something, is just alternate it to the next day. But we're also going to get right back on schedule, so we'll have another 48-hour check probably tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you sent me a message, and I'll go into this during struggles, but like it was well timed for me too. I think it was it's good to push it back a day. So we're doing it 3 times a week anyway, so I think it's fine.
Yes, indeed.
So we're gonna try to stick to 15 minutes flat here. So if anybody's in the chat right now and you have any questions, ask them now and we'll hit them at the end. If not, we'll catch you guys tomorrow. So what did you get done in the last 48 hours here? Or I guess 72 hours this time.
That's a good point. So I managed to finish inking the last page of Quarterly Stories, and so that's actually up on quarterlystories.com. So if you guys want to see it at a bigger size where you can read it and stuff, go to quarterlystories.com and check it out. That was just mostly, I think, from the last time we talked, I think that was kind of completing the inks for the last few panels, and then just kind of piecing it together and getting it scanned and cleaned up. And then I've thumbnailed the next page of Quarterly Stories, and so when I thumbnail, it's usually just kind of trying to figure out what I want the imagery to be, and just kind of a rough idea of the layout. And usually it's, you know, when I'm thumbnailing at that stage, it's to kind of serve myself more than anything. So it generally kind of looks like chicken scratch, but it did what I needed it to do. I kind of have a pretty clear idea of where I want to go with it. So yeah, that's what I got done.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people misunderstand thumbnailing and sketching because it's not drawing; it's like problem solving. And so it doesn't actually matter if it makes any sense to anyone else because you're trying to solve like the problems of like storytelling more so than you are like trying to do a good drawing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if these were thumbnails for a client, they wouldn't look like this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but my goal with the thumbnail is always like I don't want to labor it. So if I find myself like drawing or noodling too much on a thumbnail, I actually try to stop it because it makes me too precious about a stage where you're really supposed to not be precious. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that looks really good. That page turned out really well.
Awesome.
So
Thanks.
I like it. For me, I have been struggling with this page for a while, and I did a bunch of different iterations of it. And this is actually, it's really simple. And the reason that I ended up with kind of a more simple view of it was because I think I was really enamored with the cart that I drew, because I like drew this cart a long time ago, like loaded with fish and wood and goods and then unloaded, like kind of as like an exercise in like kind of world building or whatever. And I think I was trying to just shoehorn that in there because the real moment is the threat that the bird doesn't realize and that she's ticked off and then it's super stark and whatnot. And so I just kind of did one of those kill your darling moments and got rid of the thing that I loved but wasn't serving the page well. And I think it turned out pretty good. And then I just had, which I'll probably get into during struggles, I needed to start and finish something really fast to kind of cleanse the palette. And so I've got this list of ideas for some fan art. Brandon Sanderson does these books. And this is from his Stormlight archives, and so it's a little inside joke for people who have read those. And so that I knocked out in about an hour. And there's a lot that I would fix about it, but that wasn't the point. The point was to like get something done fast. And so that's kind of what I did. And it was a pretty rough weekend, but so I'm happy I accomplished anything at all, actually.
Huh.
So yeah.
So I'm curious why you say it was a rough weekend. Well, I guess we'll have to get into that on the struggles. So
Yeah, yeah. The struggles mainly. It wasn't a rough weekend art wise. Just everything else was really horrible. So anyway.
no.
But yeah. So do you want to do plans or struggles? Now that I've teased struggles.
Oh, let's jump into struggles, then we can get into plans. How
Okay.
about that?
So what did you what was getting in your way this last weekend?
So I mean, right off the top, I think it was kind of mentioned, but getting sick, which is just never something you plan. And I think that as a creative, it's funny because I think when you're younger, like the big challenge is to try to figure out a workflow, to try to figure out what exactly you want to do, what your style is. And so a lot of like I think a young artist's life is just trying to kind of figure out like what do I even want to say? It's like the blank page problem, where it's like, oh, I don't have any inspiration, and what am I going to make?
Right.
That sort of trouble, which is pretty common, I think, when you don't really know your voice, and then you kind of find your voice, you find your style, you find your kind of purpose as an artist. You have some pretty clear projects going, and then the other stuff gets in the way. And I think once you get to that stage, the most frustrating thing, especially when you build decent habits and stuff creating art, is just when the unexpected happens. When fires happen or when we get sick.
Right.
And so I really hate sick days. I don't think anybody enjoys sick days, but for me, they're extra frustrating because it's like I didn't do anything wrong. I just got sick. So.
Right.
It's a lot easier to deal with if it's like, well, I slacked off and I should have spent the time or whatever. But
Yeah.
so that was a struggle. And then other than that, I mean, it's just trying to stay amped about the progress in the comic and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that, I feel like the main struggle is just being sick.
Right.
Yeah.
And is it a momentum issue for you after you finish the page? Because that's what I tend to struggle with is once I finish a page, then I feel like I've achieved something and I should just like not have to do anything for a little bit. Or I'm just curious about your amped comment.
Well, it's kind of weird, but for me, I think the momentum thing is more of an issue of like it's just having the patience to see something through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Is the thing I struggle with, where it's like, when I get another page finished, it's like there will be these moments where I'm like, and who cares, because of the fact that it's
Right.
like I'm not able to really fully promote this or push it
Yeah.
to the level I want to until it's done. And then even if I did promote it or push it to the level I should when it's done, people will be like, great, but when's it done?
Right.
So I think for me that's more the struggle. But the weird thing is that feeling pumped when you finish something. I think for me, I usually use that as fuel to get into the next thing.
Yeah.
Because that little moment of bliss I get when I'm done, I'm like, okay, I want that again.
Yeah.
You know?
I need to switch over to that mentality because after I finish something, I'm usually like, cool. That's one of the reasons why I did the sticker stint is to get used to finishing often rather than finishing and celebrating for too long. So for me, I have to. I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about sharing this publicly. I'm okay with sharing it publicly, but I know that during times like this, that my communication style seems to come off as really robotic, and I think a lot of that is a defense mechanism. So Just know that I'm not callous. That's just how I deal with stuff like this. So the you the viewers might remember the opera that was happening during one of our episodes. We had this woman who was teaching opera lessons in our house. Really nice lady, and super nice. And she was teaching, and she taught my wife and whatever. She died on Saturday of like just a freak accident, like no warning. She was hang gliding, and it was an accident, and just died. And my wife was away on a race, and so it was just me and my daughter. And my daughter is totally freaked out about the baby that we're adopting. She's got it into her head that the baby might die, and she's like freaked out. And so then I spent the whole weekend, because I talked to Scarlett about the baby on Friday. And to give you a little bit of backstory, and not to like, this is so weird saying this on YouTube. When I was Scarlett's age, two of my brothers were killed in a car accident. And so I have probably a lot of like underlying stuff that surfaces at times because of that. And so talking to Scarlett at the age that I was when I went through kind of my first experience with death, about death all weekend, and then it's just random and doesn't make any sense. Like there's no rhyme or reason for it. She's not old. There's no warning. There was no like, she's sick. She's been sick for years. It's a good release. It's just completely senseless and insane and illogical. And so it's really hard for a kid to grasp all of that. And then for me, it's really hard as a parent to focus on, to put my kind of flashback horribleness, because I was like on the scene when it happened, whatever, to the side so that I can help her learn how to cope. And so it was hard and time consuming and intentionally time consuming. Like I could have brushed things off, but I just feel like you're a monster if you do that. And so it was just hours and hours and hours, and I'm still kind of recovering, and I'll probably be in shock because it's just, there's a person, I didn't have an amazing relationship with her, but she's a person that I knew, that I saw every day, that isn't here anymore. And then watching my daughter roll that into her preconceived fear of this other thing was really hard. So that was my main struggle. And it's super weird talking about it on here because it's like, I mean, I've, just broke down, sobbing, crying, like stuff that I, don't normally do or deal with. And, it's for my whole family, it's been a really odd, horrible thing. So,
yeah. I mean, I think that's understandably rough one, but I think it's good that you spent the time,
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's always tough. I haven't had to deal with that with Benji yet. Where it's like, it's just that's the topic. It's like weird, but it's like you almost won't breach it. Like, at least I wouldn't even be bringing up that topic much.
No, and it's like, it's one of those things where, as human beings, whether you're religious or not, it's a weird thing. You and I are both existentialists, and a major tenet of existentialism is that we're all going to die, and that's one of the things that makes life important and worth living and worth being present for. But it's a weird concept for a kid, because she started freaking out and saying, like, you and mom are going to die at some point in time, and all of my grandparents are going to die. And I'm kind of telling her, like, yeah, kind of everybody that is going to die. But the thing that helped her, because she's very logical, she's a thinker, and she's very empathetic, but she's not emotionally mature enough to deal with the thoughts that she can process. And so that's been her struggle her whole life, is she's very advanced in certain areas, but very much her age in other areas, or even maybe underdeveloped in other areas, just because we all kind of advance in different stages. Is I told her, you know, it's really rare, and she said, it's not rare, like it happens to everybody. And I said, yeah, but it happens to everybody once. And so then we did some math. I was like, okay, what's the average? You know, let's look up on the internet. What's the average lifespan of a person? 75 years old. Okay, how many days are there in 75 years? Okay, there's like 30,000 or something. I can't remember what the number is. And I said, so it happens one time, and then there's 30,000 other times that it doesn't happen. Every day is a blessing that we get to breathe. And that was the thing that finally kind of calmed her down and helped. That it is really rare, you know, that you have,
Yeah.
you know, but then there's the logical conclusion that, you know, this woman wasn't 75. She's just a little bit older than I am. So anyway, yeah, it's weird. It's a hard parenting weekend. So
Yeah, and it's a tough one because I always feel like with anyone, like I don't know, there's usually a lot of tropes and stuff that are said where it's like, you know, well, death is part of life or whatever, and it's like, no, just like people dying sucks, and it never is not going to suck.
Right.
It's just it's kind of a terrible thing that happens.
Yeah, and everything, there's nothing good about it, you know. I mean,
no.
Yeah, and I mean, you like time passes and it stops hurting, but you know, and you can grow stronger. You know, there's some benefits in the long term, but in the short term, it just sucks, and there's nothing about it that doesn't suck. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Wow.
So yeah, so there's a huge giant wet blanket dropping from the sky to ruin everybody's day.
Well, what's surprising though is like you know, I'm amazed you got anything done. You know, creatively, that's pretty amazing.
You kind of have to though. I mean, at a certain point, there's only so much that you can do before you just have to like get back to some normalcy, you know, and like, you know, it's like whenever you like go somewhere for a family funeral or something, it's like everyone's there. They feel bad that they're having fun because they don't see the cousins often or whatever. And then it's not fun, but then you're also around, you know, it's like, I think part of the grieving process is like you need life to move on a little bit. And, you know, everybody grieves differently or whatever, but for me, like I can't maintain a level of non-productivity for too long before that in and of itself also starts to cause problems. And so that's why I did that shirt, is I just have to finish something. I've got to get something done that isn't important and doesn't matter and whatever, you know. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I got stuff done as a coping mechanism.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of my art has always been like a little bit of therapy too. So there's a little bit of just the idea of I'm imagining honestly, like if I worked on cars, it would be the same way. Where I just like something like that happened, I'd just go in the garage and work on a car forever. You know?
Yeah, because at a certain point, when you don't have to think, it's helpful.
Yeah, exactly. It's a go-to, and so I think it's kind of nice having art when stuff like that happens, because it is something to kind of at least keep your brain occupied, keep yourself, you know, engaged and moving. Man. Whew.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool. It's part of life, man.
It is, you know, and I don't know. Everybody deals with it differently. I had, you know, maybe a bigger dose than most as a kid, and so I have a tendency to deal with it maybe in a more childish way, just because those are the patterns that I developed when I was younger. And so there's a constant battle with me to not like shut off emotionally and to like, I have to like try to feel things, because my natural defense is like, oh, I just won't feel anything for 10 years. I'm not gonna be a person. Just be just a thing. And so that's my biggest fear, is whenever something like this happens, that I'm going to slip into old habits of roboticness and no connection with people. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, this
No, I can totally understand that. I mean, I know I had a pretty serious loss when I was in college, and I remember my way of dealing with that was like getting higher than a 4.0 and just working a lot and not hanging out with anyone, you know.
right. Yeah.
So it's you know, and people have different methods and stuff, but I definitely relate to what you're saying about the shutting down. It's something I always have to be like, conscious of too.
Yeah.
And we're in a life where that kind of thing is going to be something we have to deal with, and so you're you're right to bring up like that too. Like that, it's cool that you're conscious of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not something you normally talk about in an art vlog, but it is part of life, and everybody experiences it, and you know, however you deal with it is fine. It's just as long as you deal with it and whatever. So in any case,
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
well, and like I said, the cool thing that does relate very sincerely to this is like the fact that you were still productive, and like so you've gotten something positive out of an utterly negative experience, which is, you know, that's honestly that's awesome. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the upside, even though it was exceptionally difficult, more so than normal, was that I'm still on track for my long-term goal. I'm still finishing the pages at the rate that I wanted to finish them at. You know, and in addition to that, it didn't come at a sacrifice of like family time, which is what I said on Friday, is that I was going to spend time with my daughter, and it's not the time that I was intending to spend, but that's it was still. I think it was still good, and I think she feels a lot better, and you know, and so yeah, I was still able to stay on track. I feel like I'm going way long. I don't want to turn this into like a therapy session or anything.
No worries, it's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so should we get into plans then?
Yeah.
Let's
So
get into
what are your plans? Do you just want to do plans for between now and tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay. So what are your plans before now and tomorrow?
They're probably not going to be much. I mean, my goal is to hopefully get the panel borders and the typography done for the next page.
Okay.
So that's usually the second stage for me.
And that's this page that you thumbnailed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the plan. But we'll see if that happens before or after our art check.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we're not doing this every day, because a lot of the times I will get a lot of work done afterwards, because before I'm like getting home from work, and you know, there's like, you know, all that stuff where you got to get home and eat dinner and hang out with the family and do whatever needs to be done around the house, and then sometimes I don't get started until, you know, 9 or 10 at night, and we do this before that. Usually, not today,
exactly. It's good that it's every 2 days, and then like once again, I'm sure, you know, next time it'll be like, I'm guessing tomorrow won't be the most impressive check-in, but the one thing I was gonna say, because I still got a little time, right?
Yeah.
Do I?
Yeah. Okay. You got 45 seconds.
So I was gonna use my time to talk about your spread.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So I think it's fascinating that you chose to get rid of the cart, but I think it's probably a smart idea, since you're focusing on the key elements, and so you've kind of taken something that maybe you were overcomplicating and sort of focusing on the key element that you wanted to get accomplished, and I actually think that's pretty cool. And I know I myself struggle with that too, where I'll get too precious about like an idea that I really want somewhere that it doesn't really make sense to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool. Anyhow, I just thought I'd mention.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And along those lines, I still am going to use that cart somewhere, but it might be like in the dust jacket, because I don't know that it actually fits into the story anywhere. But yeah, so for me, since I finished this the other day and I finished the shirt the other day, I might actually because I kind of still just feel gross. I might actually try to bust out another sticker T-shirt design tonight. And then I need to decide. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but I need to decide on what pages I'm going to finish this week. And so by tomorrow, I'm hoping to have. Well, I will have, for certain. I will have the 2 pages that I'll be finishing this week chosen, and I actually have a couple spreads that are like half done. And so I'll have those. I might just finish the other page of both of those spreads. And I don't know. I probably won't be able to finish that by tomorrow. They're not hard. It's just a spot illustration, but for some reason I've been putting it off for a month. But anyway, so I'll choose those 2 pages and maybe finish a sticker / T-shirt design, because I've got a big list of them that I've already decided. So from an idea standpoint, I've got 40 ideas that I could do at any given time, and so it's really just a couple hours of not thinking and just putting down the art. And
Awesome.
that style's fast that I do those in. So it's not the paper inking style that takes me days. It's the digital thing on the iPad that just takes me a couple hours. So
Nice. So it's like less labor intensive, but it gives a quick result, which is cool.
right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we'll see. Definitely, I'll choose those 2 pages and get started on the thumbnails of that. But if I can knock something out tonight, I might try that as well. So we'll see how it goes.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm excited for our check-in. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And honestly, I really want to say I appreciate you being like open about what's going on and stuff too, because like I do think that will probably be encouraging for people who are on this art journey as well, because of the fact that like that inevitably happens. I mean,
Right.
Like managing a department, I don't think we've gone a year without somebody in my department losing someone,
Right.
and usually a family member or somebody really close. And so it's amazing how common that is.
Yeah.
And then once again, it doesn't depersonalize it. It just, I think it's important to be open about that kind of thing, because like I said, I think just the fact that you still managed to get work done and are still doing the art check and all of that, it's actually like, it really speaks to the kind of journey that we're on, because time is limited,
Right.
and so it's sort of, I think to accomplish what you and I are both kind of hoping to accomplish in this art thing, it's important to take advantage of the moments we got, because they're few and far between,
Yeah.
So anyhow, I really do appreciate the vulnerability on that stuff.
Yeah, and that's one thing that is really important to me, is that I feel like the word authenticity gets thrown around a lot, and has almost become cliche or trite and meaningless. But I've made an effort really to not hide things and to just be who I am, whether that's in person or online or whatever. And so crap like this happens sometimes, and I went through a period on Twitter where I was super upbeat all the time, and if I didn't have anything good to say, I wouldn't say it. And I found it to be really hollow and disingenuous, and it wasn't, like, selfishly, it wasn't helpful for me. And so I mean, going back to my brother's funeral when I was 7, I spoke at the funeral, and I remember my dad getting up after that, and he delivered the eulogy, and of his 2 sons, his 2-year-old and his 4-week-old son, and he said, he told everybody, I'm allowed to say this because I'm going through it. I need you guys not to be weird. When I see you in the hallway or I see you, I want to talk to you about this. This is going on in my life, and I'm not going to bury it. I'm going to talk to you about it, and I need you guys not to avoid me and I need you just to engage me in conversation. And I watched a lot of family members. I have over 70 cousins. And I watched a lot of people deal with this, and there were some other things that happened in the next year or so where some other people died. And I watched them deal with it, and those that are open with it and talk through what they're going through honestly, and don't sugarcoat it, seem to fare much better than those that buried it or ignored it or whatever, dealt with it differently. And so, yeah, for me, it's it might come off as whatever, some noble trait that I'm being vulnerable, but it's very much a learned coping mechanism that I can't bury stuff that I'm going through, because if I do, it just eats you away. It's a cancer. It's a poison that just doesn't go away if you bury it. So anyway, so I'm using this forum as an outlet to not be eaten from the inside out, I guess. So
no, I think that's great. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you know, if you, and this for anybody watching or whatever, but it's like I've lost, you know, people who are very close to me, and one of the most frustrating things when you lose someone or you go through like losing a friend or anything, to me, for my personality, the most frustrating responses are usually the well, on the bright side,
yeah,
you know, that response, which is always like like I said, I kind of think, you know, it's like we kind of have to acknowledge what that stuff is, which is, you know, there's not much of a bright side. It's a pretty crappy thing.
Right.
And then the other is people would be like, I really, really want to hear how you're doing, and then you'd actually express it, and they'd be like, ooh, well, you know, hey, you know, the skies get cloudy sometimes, but the sun comes out. You're like, oh man, you can't handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, I think you're dead on about being open about it, and I think that's a good thing. And like I said, I think it also goes to serve the people watching this, that like, hey, you know, when we're making stuff, you're making it when you're going through loss, you're making it when you're going through rain and snow. If I hadn't been vomiting, I would have been making it then, but it's hard to ink when you're puking.
Yeah.
But if I could have, I would have.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's just kind of, it's good. All right. So, I think we should wrap this on a down note. Who gives a crap? Right?
Yeah. Why be up?
So the intro art is by me. You can check it out at quarterlystories.com. The intro animation is by Cory Kerr. You can check that and other awesome, like that illustration you saw. Not the spread, but the other illustration that Cory knocked out over the weekend. That and other illustrations like that are for sale at this site, but also his art at kuretake.com. And then the intro music was by my band No Saboteurs. So thanks to the rest of the guys for allowing us to use that music. And we will see you guys next week.
We're out.